one out. But yeah, so I don't see it. What I see it having an impact on is Lee, in terms of the other story that broke off the back of this, is Ryan Briley has got a release clause, so now people can come and take him away from Lee.
If Paul Rowley's
left. There's a number of clubs getting more and more seriously linked. I think both the whole clubs. Huddersfield's an interesting one. They must have. I reckon they'll have cap space.
Yeah, but
is he could do with a new fast sort of skillful halfback player? I'd say
they've got Danny Brough and Jamie Ellis.
Yeah.
Is he going to get?
We said last week.
Is he a significant upgrade on Jamie Ellis?
We said last week that Kyle Wood and Luke Robinson no longer really a top level. Are going to have a massive impact. We don't feel this season.
Yeah.
So you could have Ellis as your backup hooker.
Yeah.
And bring Briley in.
Yeah. Huddersfield is a bit closer to home than Lee, or a bit nearer to Lee than say Hull, for instance.
I just think that's.
I don't think you go to KR. They've got enough halves of better ability, I would say, and I don't see him going to Hull FC.
There's not too many clubs in Super League that wouldn't take a punt on him at this stage. I wouldn't have thought.
I think people would get him on their books and maybe
Huddersfield would be a good move to him because he'd get to play next to an experienced, established player.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't all be on his shoulders.
Yeah.
You wouldn't feel like you wouldn't. They don't seem like a club who puts anyone under pressure because there's not a big media presence around the club. There's not a big fan base around the club to put masses of pressure on.
I suppose Danny Brough is a similar kind of player, although a better version of a Martin Rigid in terms of being that in-game kicker, the organiser that Briley's used to playing.
So I'd give him that. And the other interesting thing off the back of this story, I think, is it really reignites your poll in a way.
Yes.
Because it opens up the scope now. There's a coach on the market who has shown success, albeit in the Championship, but
that's it.
You know, Ian Millwood was successful in the Championship, then had a great career at St Helens, probably proved he couldn't quite a genuinely big club. But
I think if you're the chairman of Hull KR, Hull FC, or I'm not going to say Wakefield because I think Brian Smith's in there like swimwear. But if you're either Hull chairman or
Salford,
all of a sudden, if things don't quite start ticking over for you early doors, your head coach is going to be under some serious pressure because Ronnie's out there and he's got a reputation now.
Even the same applies probably to clubs like Bradford, Featherstone, Sheffield. Well, not Sheffield actually.
I'm not even daring to dream.
But a couple of the other top Championship clubs.
Well, we've already got a high calibre hooker as a coach.
Yeah.
We're all set for coaching and decision making at Bradford Bulls, mate. Don't worry about us.
Well, another club that seems to be set in their own mind, at least, about coaching and decision making is St Helens. They've extended the contract of head coach Kieran Cunningham until the end of 2018. Chairman Eamon McManus stated, "Kieran is a young and talented and ambitious British coach who, even at the very beginning of his career, has already won the absolute respect of his team and all at this club." Apart from Diana LBW and a couple of other fans.
There are some voices of discontent around this kind of decision at St Helens. I mean, look, good luck to the guy who's a legend of the sport, isn't he? So I'm not keen to see him do poorly. I just don't think that they've got the ammunition this season.
It would be difficult
around
for
the rest
him
of the
to be
league.
the same calibre and legend of coach that he was as a player for that club.
Yeah,
he has
and I think that will be the comparison that's always drawn. The expectation will be he performs as a coach as he did as a player. And I just don't think it's feasible.
That's not fair either.
I just don't think it's fair or feasible to expect that of Kieran Cunningham, particularly at this early stage of his coaching career, but generally anyway.
But now we've got another coach to talk about who's not at an early stage of his coaching career.
Yeah, that's right. Far from it, in fact. Former Australia coach Wayne Bennett has been offered a role with England by the Rugby Football League. The 66-year-old Brisbane Broncos boss will speak to RFL officials before deciding whether or not to accept a position. Bennett is, of course, one of the Graham's most experienced coaches and was in charge of Brisbane for 20 years from their formation in 1988. He won 6 grand finals before moving to St George Illawarra, where he won another NRL title in 2010. In addition, he spent 3 spells with the Queensland State of Origin team and 2 spells in charge of the Australian national side. Bennett told the Brisbane Courier Mail, "We haven't finalised the role, but I've been offered some opportunities. I have to find out how they see me involved. Everything is on the table. I wanted to coach Australia, but that's not available now. I wanted to make a contribution to International Rugby League. About 5 years ago, the RFL first arrived at my doorstep. It's always about finding the right timing." So if a deal is done, Bennett will combine the role between being in charge of Great Britain, being in charge of England, and his job as the Brisbane Broncos boss. He went on to say, "I've told the Broncos what I'm doing. and the people who matter are across it. They're totally supportive of it, as were they of me when I applied for the Australian coaching job. I could do the Australian job without impinging on what I was doing at the Broncos. It's absolutely the priority for me. The RFL has refused to comment on any discussions with Bennett. It's carrying out a review of the England setup, which will conclude in February. So we'll know within the next 4 weeks, essentially, what role, if any, Wayne Bennett is going to have with England RL. I think the important thing to take from this from me is it's not straight up he's been offered the head coach's role. So this could be anything really, from some consultancy work with Steve McNamara through to head coaching. So we don't really know what's on the table yet, do we? Or what Wayne Bennett in some respects will deign to accept, because this is a big historically high achieving name to have associated with English rugby, isn't it?
Yeah, and the association would be great. The support he could offer to a head coach who has a better grasp on, or a better amount of time to have a grasp on the players he can play, the sort of team he can put out. I don't think he can be the head coach. That's my genuine view on it.
I agree. Not if he's going to stay in Australia. And fair play to the guy.
It's been reported as if he is going to be the head coach, but then every quote I've seen from him that underpins these headlines does not suggest he's going to be the head coach in any shape or form.
I don't think he will either.
He wasn't the head coach for the New Zealand side when he supported Stephen Kearney in his development. What it sounds to me like they should be doing is bringing in a new coach for England and have Bennett work with him.
Yeah.
Rather than keeping McNamara in and have Bennett work with him. I think McNamara's created his own environment and culture there, and if you wanted to keep that going, they could have done. They obviously see a different option now, otherwise they would have renewed McNamara's contract already.
Almost straight away.
You'd think so, wouldn't you? Anyway.
I think so, yeah.
So I can't imagine it's going to be... Look, the guys what...
Tell you where the stars are aligning for this, don't you?
Go on.
Rowley. Paul Rowley, young, coach with a strong reputation, supported by the fucking Gandalf of rugby league.
Even better, I'd get Powell in.
yeah.
And let Rowley go to Cass.
Yeah, maybe so. Yeah, actually that works better. But that seems a bit more convoluted though.
Yeah, but the guy's a veteran of 850 or so NRL games, including finals. He's won, like we said, 7.
Yeah, nobody's won more.
He could have won a grand final last year if it wasn't for Ben Hunt all of a sudden developing droppy hands.
Come on, don't lay it at the doors of poor old Ben Hunt. Let's just say that it was a North Queensland Cowboys groundswell, and overall they were collectively the better side.
A collective team effort for Ben Hunt to drop balls and give away penalties in the last minute of the game.
All of Northern Australia willing him to fuck it up.
But anyway, he could have won another last year though. He turned that team around a game from being, an average team the year before. They finished 8th or something the season before,
which is a big step up in when you think of the NRL, to go from kind of being low end playoffs to...
It's easier to do than it is in our competition, to be fair. There's a more evenness about it, but it was a big job with basically the same players, and if anything he's got a better squad, but he's obviously more determined to get Brisbane Broncos back to the promised land than he is to get England Rugby League.
Of course, but the guy is Brisbane Broncos through and through, so that's completely understandable. What did the good listeners to the Super League pod have to say about it?
Well, Tim Griffiths, he said, if the Bennett news is true, England would be upgrading from a rusty pushback to a Maserati. Brian Davies said, it's incredible news if true. Steve Mack was doing a good job, but Bennett should do even better. Cole Render said, McNamara's time was up. He did okay, but bringing someone in with fresh ideas will be good for England. And then Paul Michael Craig said, should be good for you pommy bastards. Hopefully he gets Powell a gig as an assistant.
Hey, there you go. Go on then, you can do this next one.
This had me laughing hysterically. Already the news broke about Rowley.
I almost didn't want to do the podcast. This is up there with when you beat us by 80 points in terms of, oh God, I don't want to do it this week.
So this was following hot off the news about Paul Rowley leaving Lee. That made me laugh. Yeah. I also enjoyed the suggestion that Brierley could have been going as well. But this just was the cherry on the cake of that day, that day's news stories really for me. Yeah. Bradford Bulls have completed the signing of Richie Mathers after coming out of retirement. The former England international picked up his dummy and announced after answering and has joined the Bulls the day his ban came to an end for breaching the sports rules related to betting. He had taken up a new role with Warrington Wolves as player welfare manager, and he will continue in that role whilst playing for the Bulls with We've had a couple of people get in touch. Brian Davies said, "Chuff me, Lilu's Rollier, Bullseye Mathers, top 2 in the championships, both in crisis."
Yeah.
And Paul Clark, who's a new one on me, so thanks for getting in touch, Paul. Keep getting in touch. He said, "Leeds had the best of Mathers. He's been useless since he boarded the plane for Australia." I'd say soft, wet, bit of a cop out to cheerleader since then. But he turned our mindsets around a little bit, didn't he, in his spell at Wakefield? A little bit.
But
then he threw his toys right out of the pram when he fucking broke the rules, and he knew he broke the rules.
Yeah.
What is a sort of hidden story to this? How he might help salvage the Bulls' recent financial ruins by having a lot of tips for Mark Green on how he can maybe pad the backfellas a little bit.
First of all, since you're clearly playing the Eric Morecambe role in this one, I'll play it straight and be Ernie Wise. I think Mark Green is an astute enough businessman not to require betting tips from Richie Mathers. I mean, it was exciting.
I don't know, he bought the Bulls.
It was exactly. He got it on a fucking. He didn't have to spend a lot of money to do it, mate. He loaned us money about 6 months before he took it on. He didn't spend any extra cash. It was quite nice to be favourites to finish top of the championship for about 3/4 of an hour. I enjoyed that. After Rowley quit, I thought, oh, great stuff. Here we go. Oh no, hang on, Richie Mathers. The official party line is that he offers a wealth of experience as a fullback, and it's his defensive organisation that they brought him in for too, because we've lost Jake Mulaney, who was a different type of player anyway, but we've not really got a recognised fullback. There's talk.
Well, you lost Ryan Shaw as well. He played a lot of games at fullback for you last year, didn't he?
Ryan Shaw is a fucking completely different character.
But he played a lot of games though.
He did, yeah. Injuries required that, but then obviously once James Clare came in, James Clare had people talking about, on the Bulls fans were talking about James Clare and Oscar Thomas. James Clare had one good game at fullback and then got dropped on the back of his performance at fullback the following week. Oscar Thomas is an unproven entity. So if he can help Oscar Thomas develop into a fullback or help to organise things a little bit more, brilliant. He's won Challenge Cups. Won titles. Let's take let's get some of his.
You don't have a young back line though, do you? Do you know what I mean? Gaskell's experienced.
Yeah.
Williams is experienced.
Yeah. Matty Blythe's experienced.
Purtell's experienced.
Chris Wellham's experienced.
Wellham, yeah.
Look, I don't doubt for a second.
Claire's not exactly a new kid on the block, even though he's not played a lot of first grade games.
Yeah, Omari Caro's played Super League. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Look, I'm trying to find the positive to this. I think half of it is because we spent 2 years absolutely panning Richie Mathers, and now the chickens have come at roost and signed for my fucking team. Tim Griffiths, by the way, tweeted me. I can't remember if it was personally or to the Super League.
It must have been, I didn't see it.
Tweeted me personally with a link to the new Bulls entry music, and it was cheerleader by Omi. So I think that one exactly. So I was quite pleased about it. Look, if he comes in and does a good job, fine. He can't be taking up too much.
Should have played that over the background of this story coming in, shouldn't we?
He can't be taking up too much cap space because he's still getting paid to work full time at fucking Warrington. So that's
the worry for me. If you brought him in to help develop other players,
I think this.
How much time is he actually going to have to do that when he's got another job doing that somewhere else?
Honestly, I think this was the second choice. I think something else has fallen through because if you read the article in the Telegraph and Argus, he says something along the lines of, "It's been a crazy few days since Chev got in touch." So here's my theory behind it. We've had someone else lined up. That's fallen through, or something hasn't quite panned out the way we thought it was going to be. They're looking for something at fullback, and Chev Walker's gone, "Hey, Jimmy, let's give Richie a ring." He's twiddling his thumbs. The only people, and again, it's just more ex-Leeds players coming into the Bulls, and it's not quite like that with Jimmy Lowe's. But honestly, the only people who are going to benefit from this will be Betfred and Wibsy, as far as I can tell. So let's get behind the team, Bulls fans, and see how he does. He's dead set to get picked. That's the thing. There's no point in bitching about it because he's going to play. So,
right.
We may as well cheer him on.
Fair enough. A quickie here. Hull FC forward Mark Minicello signed a new deal with the club. He has signed a 1-year extension to his existing deal, meaning at the KC Stadium until the end of 2017.
Yep, good business for both player and club.
Sensible, it seems, yeah.
Absolutely, okay.
Some news on rule changes, which is quite exciting. Well, the rule changes aren't. The experimental rules I like more. The RFL have revealed 4 new rule changes that will apply to Super League, Championship, League One and the Challenge Cup in 2016. The RFL statement reads, "These changes have been produced by the RFL Laws Committee, a group with game-wide representation, and relate to rules around video referee protocol, basically only one video ref. 8-point tries, basically just cleared up that it's only the player scoring a try getting fouled in the process of scoring a try. That leads to an 8-point try. Communications equipment for medical staff, they can have it. And the ability of match officials to, at the request of medical personnel, instruct a player to leave the field for a concussion assessment,
Good.
or if a match official has concern that the player may have suffered a concussion, to stop play and call the medical team onto the field of play to examine the player. Obviously, they padded that one out more in the press release, so that's the biggest one there. The concussion stuff, we're all keen to not have concussion issues.
Yeah, exactly.
Dog our sport like it has in other sports.
Got to make it safer.